Thanks everyone for joining us. We're here today for episode 2 of the Crypto Use Case podcast. We have a very special guest that we're excited to talk with, Guillermo Goncalvez Espiga, co-founder, CEO of Dorado. Guillermo has a very interesting story coming from Venezuela. I'm sure he's going to tell us a lot about money, emerging markets, stablecoin adoptions, and more. And they've built a really great platform with Dorado to allow people all over the world, and especially in LATAM countries, to transact with each other on a peer-to-peer basis. So we're excited to dive deep in all of these topics. But maybe to start, Guille, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about your story, your background, growing up in Venezuela. Very curious to know more about you.
Right. Hi, Manuel. Hi, Martin. Thank you so much for the invite. Really glad to be here. So yeah, as mentioned, I'm originally from Venezuela. I'm actually calling you from my hometown, from Caracas. I'm here for a few days doing some research work, actually, that we're going to publish pretty soon. But my story goes like this. I became a finance junkie pretty much when I was like 15 or 16 years old. Decided to pursue a career in finance. Studied finance in a university here in Venezuela. But I discovered Bitcoin back in 2013. At that time, there was even very little content in Spanish about Bitcoin, and I was 19 years old, so I was pretty young. But I decided that it was a good idea to start mining Bitcoins. And basically back then, electricity was very cheap in Venezuela, was nearly fully subsidized. So I joined some friends, and we built one of the earliest Bitcoin mining companies in Latin America. And we actually got some angel funding back in 2014 or something. So I'm pretty grateful for those angel investors that backed a bunch of 19-year-olds. And it was my first ride and my first journey within the crypto space. Built that business for over 4 years, became one of the first partners of Bitmain in Venezuela, started importing miners like the Antminer S1s and S2s. And that eventually led me to discover other aspects within the crypto ecosystem, like local exchanges. Basically, we had a couple of Bitcoin mines just outside of Caracas, but all of our costs were denominated in bolivars. So at some point, all of our revenue was just Bitcoin, and we needed an exchange to get some bolivars to be able to pay all the bills. And that was when I discovered local Bitcoins. We also became some of the very first market makers on local Bitcoins, offering some of the Bitcoins that we were mining. And yeah, that was pretty inspiring, because I was seeing people that were using local Bitcoins almost like a side gig. And this was a time that inflation was starting to take off, and it was impressive. But if you see local Bitcoins volumes, especially in Venezuela, it's almost linear with Venezuela's hyperinflation. So in 2015, there were a few traders. In 2016, there were more and more traders. And by 2017 and 18, local Bitcoins was a national phenomenon.
And can you share some of the inflation rates? Because I think many people that have never lived inflation, it's hard. Like when you say high inflation, they think 8%. What is high inflation in 2018 look like in Venezuela? Like what was 2015, 17, 18 ballpark numbers?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we've always had inflation in Venezuela, one digit or double digit numbers, but by 2016, it started to become a problem. It rose over 100% yearly inflation rate, and that pretty much skyrocketed in 2018 to over 1 million% inflation rate. So to give you some context, 1 million, and actually that's kind of official numbers, but the real number is between 1 and 2 million%. But to give you a rough idea, prices in Venezuela by 2018 were doubling every 3 or 4 days. So if you were a business owner, you needed to pretty much remove all of the things you had in your stores and change the quotation for a new price every 3 or 4 days. So that was simply stupid, and all of the professional middle class pretty much went very, very affected by this, because many people by then were still receiving bolivars as a payment. Today the situation is different, but we'll talk about that later. And for instance, my parents are doctors, and I think I've heard something from you, Martin, that something similar happens in Argentina, where doctors are they make some good money, but they're pretty bad with finances. I think that was kind of my case as well. Like I have like decently successful doctor parents, but not very good at finances. So that was part of my attraction to finance as well. But anyways, their salaries were highly affected. And for me, as a 19, 21-year-old guy, I was impressed that I was making more money by simply buying and selling Bitcoins on local Bitcoins alongside a bunch of people that I didn't know in real life than doctors, bankers, lawyers, and many professionals that many of them decided to leave Venezuela eventually.
Yeah. One of the things I used to say about Argentina, but I think it also applies to Venezuela, is inflation is so high, it forces everyone to become a financier, right? Like it's just not an option not to know how these things go. But in order to give more color, because I think Argentina experiences inflation, but I think Venezuela was a lot higher than what Argentina was. What did that do to the economy, right? Like back in 2018, you're talking about like doubling prices every 3 days, no prices in stores. I see that in Argentina as well. Sometimes the menus, like you put something on top, but now the menus don't have any more prices, and you just like have to ask. What does that do? Like, do people dollarize? Like, what happens to the economy in that context?
Yeah, so a few things. So it forced people to dollarize. Before that, dollarization was something for financially educated people, or the upper middle class and high class in Venezuela. But after it was a thing of life or death. So um, uh, really, the dollarization started back in those days, and it was very, very informal. And actually, many people had one trusted person that they would communicate with to ask for dollar quotes, and usually via WhatsApp or something. And they were, oh, I need to buy $50 or something. But this phenomenon was so huge that there were many things happening. Like, for instance, people were buying food as soon as they were receiving their salaries. And that was when we had these massive lines of people outside supermarkets, because food was a way better store of value than money. I mean, that's
I
just.
remember that in 2001, my mom started implementing that. So we have in our house, like in when I was a kid growing up, in my room, the second floor, like we used to put our toys. That became where we pack food, and it's like fully packed of like non-perishable food. It's crazy that food becomes store value.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, crazy. So that's one. What else?
Yeah, for instance, secondly, credit completely eroded from the financial system. Like, and still today, the only credit that you can get is via like pay now, buy later applications that have become popular as of recently. But to give you like a funny anecdote, I paid almost half of my tuition at my university by just using my credit card, and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and then just selling a small portion of Bitcoin or dollars to be able to do so. And I think I saved probably like 90% of my tuition by just doing that. And it's the things that you think like, okay, how are banks making money if they are offering loans and credits to people in this kind of ecosystem?
Was that restricted afterwards?
I mean, banks simply stopped lending money. That's what happened, and
So no
it's
more
still
credit
as of
cards,
today.
you
No
mean?
more credit cards, no more mortgages, no more loans, and still, as of today, there's very the credit. Like the credit balance related to the GDP is probably one of the smallest in the world. So
For context, what is inflation looking today in Venezuela, right? So you said it picked up from like high single digit or teens back in 2014, 15, up to like doubling the price every day, so million, 2 million% inflation in 2018. What is it now?
yeah, so our estimate is that Venezuela will close this year with about 40 to 50% yearly inflation rate. And to put more color on this, since 2018 and 19, the government actually started a deregulation process of just simply allowing businesses to transact in US dollars, mostly in cash. And that has been massively helpful, because before that, it was almost like a hot potato game. Like the person who received the bolivars, they wanted to get rid of the bolivars as fast as possible. And something that I forgot, but I think that it's also important to mention for our audience, is that Venezuela in 2018 introduced what we call Pago Móvil, but it's like one of the very first real-time payment systems in Latin America. And the reason we implemented this is because it was stupidly expensive for the government to keep printing new bills, because obviously when you have like 1 million or 2 million% inflation rate, like you need to exchange the monetary bills like every couple months, because the old ones became useless. And I'm sure you guys have seen the pictures of people making I don't know, whatever, like a hat made out of Venezuelan bills, and the value of the hat is way higher than the value of the bills itself.
Yeah, and maybe Guille, tell us a little bit about this dollarization process, right? I mean, you guys started with Bitcoin, mining it. You were an early adopter, let's say, and of course, there is always this case study of countries in LATAM or countries that are having difficult fiat-based situations adopting cryptocurrencies earlier. But with Bitcoin, you of course have some issues associated with volatility and so forth, and you always get back, okay, what is that stable store of value that I can use to transact? Okay, dollars. There are issues with accessing physical dollars. There are issues with accessing digital dollars, at least in Venezuela and in many economies, in many countries. So what was that next transformation? Stable coins, of course, but how did we get there again as a country, as a Venezuela? How did you get to the idea of building El Dorado with your team? Tell us a little bit about how the dominoes fell and led you in that direction.
Absolutely. So a few points here. So basically, the US dollar was banned in Venezuela for over 20 years. So before 2019, like carrying US dollars in cash or paying with US dollars in cash was considered illegal, and you could get into trouble with the Venezuelan authorities. So the whole process really got a massive transformation in 2019, when the government decided to just uplift the regulations on banning the US dollar. It's still not legal tender, but it now represents, I'm talking about US dollars in cash only, but it now represents up to 60% of all the transactions in the Venezuelan economy. So it's a massive tool for everyone. But to answer your
Can I sorry, just to clarify there, so you say 60%, that's by volume, meaning a real estate transaction will kind of like move that, or is it by quantity, like meaning you now in Venezuela, like this week You don't have to self-incriminate, but like someone in Venezuela with your purchasing power and so on, you don't touch bolivares, you just do USD. Is that the reality?
Yeah, I'm talking by quantity, and this is like estimates from economic surveys that many consultancy firms have done here in Venezuela. But as similar as in Argentina, every high value object is always priced in US dollars. So if you want to buy a car, real estate, or a business, that's always or for a long time being quoted in US dollars directly.
But like a loaf of bread, like a kilo of bread, that would still be bolivares, right?
Yeah, that would still be bolivares, but now there's always like a trick that is now widely accepted even for government authorities, and that is that people, if you go to a supermarket in Venezuela, it's not going to say either bolivars or dollars. It's actually going to say reference, REF, and it's going to say REF 30. And so that means the equivalent of $30. So this is the way that people is circumventing this laws, basically.
Interesting. And if you pay bolivares, they will do the forex at that point in time, and if you pay dollars, it will be the dollar value, right, of the reference. Interesting. Awesome. I want to get to like the pictures that you have in El Dorado about like Zelle and so on, but I think that comes later. Emma, I'll let you continue. Sorry, I wanted to understand that.
No, super interesting. And Guy, I think we were at the point where you were describing how dollars were illegal still until 2019, but now about 60% of transactions are taking place with dollar, at least with cash. What's next, right? How did that transform into stablecoin, into USDT? How did that lead you to wanting to start El Dorado with your team?
Of course. So US dollars in cash are very inconvenient if it's not legal tender. Like you don't have dollars in your bank account. I cannot go to an ATM and get like dollar bills. It's dollars that it's truly a grassroots dollarization process what we've experienced in Venezuela. So it's very difficult, for instance, to find like $5 bills. It's mostly 20s. So now people it's trying to like circle prices into some specific numbers, in order to make it easier for merchants and for individuals. But the stablecoin adoption really started back in, I would say, in 2018 and 19, with a few platforms that were not even introducing like stable coins, but it was a form of digital dollar. Like, I don't know if you guys remember Uphold. Uphold became massively popular in Venezuela at some point, and there were many people, including us, that we were doing arbitrage on local bitcoins using Bitcoin, but then every night we were capitalizing or earnings in dollar terms, because we didn't want to lose money with Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin overnight, because that would make all the arbitrage effort useless. So that was kind of the first interactions that we saw with digital dollars themselves, and then by 2018 and 19, with the massive rise of Binance and the dominance of Binance in Latin America, people just simply started using USDT, and it's since then it's been by far the stable coin with the biggest network effects.
And before we jump into El Dorado, just to double click on Binance and stablecoin adoptions, from a user experience standpoint, what does that look like? You have this weak fiat currency that is being used together with the dollar by people. You have this digital platform, Binance, Apple, that you can access through a computer, through an iPhone, and you need to basically on and off ramp in some way, right? Are you using bolivares? Are you using dollars? Are you acquiring bolivares through some peer-to-peer application and then topping up your Binance account and transacting that way? How did that transformation happen from, the fiat world which is mixed between dollars and bolivarians into the crypto native digital world. And then maybe Guille, to tell us a little bit in terms of adoption, who were the first pioneer of this adoption of stablecoins? You guys, of course, were crypto native, were in the business for quite some time, but what about the mom and pop shop that were, you know, running a store in the market, or the average person that was looking to save in dollars, right? Like, how did that transformation happen, both from a society standpoint, but also from a technological / UX standpoint? It would be great to learn a little bit more.
Absolutely, and I think it's been like a trial and error process. So when we look at 2018 and 19, there were many like crypto companies and even networks and tokens very interested in Venezuela. Like there was Dash like talking to merchants all over Venezuela. Even Bitcoin Cash was at some point used for a few people, but these were like kind of very very small experiments. The true transformation really came with Binance and the use of USDT via Binance, and it for the most part, I say that peer-to-peer markets are just an extension of the dollar market, and that is kind of true for Venezuela and also for Argentina. So people are doing the same that they were doing back in 2017 or 18, just that they are doing it now in a way safer and way more sophisticated way via an app, and that is a huge progress for many people. Then that translated to some other network effects. For instance, the Binance Pay has been massively accepted as a payment method all across Venezuela, and that is something really unique of this country, because I've been in Argentina many times, and of course you can walk around Palermo and pay with the USDT, but there are many companies and many people like making a lot of noise and making a lot of work in order to make that happen. And honestly, I don't know how many normal people is paying with USDT, like for buying coffee or something. But in the case of Venezuela, because we had so many limitations, and because the currency eroded itself completely, that was when the businesses really started posting this ads where they are accepting like different payment methods, and Binance Pay became a very popular one among them. And one of the reasons is that it's relatively similar to the idea of Zelle, that is also massively popular in Venezuela, because you can do a USDT payment instantly and for free, and that is very important for a payment platform. So I've seen like I don't know, like drugstores near the beach here in Venezuela, like a very very rural place, accepting Binance Pay, and I'm very sure that Binance didn't approach them or anything. It was them using Binance for peer-to-peer or for storing USDT, and then realizing that they simply had to share their username in order to start accepting USDT via Binance Pay.
That's awesome, and I think it goes to, you can inflate a currency a lot, right? Like at Argentinian level, and the only thing you're going to push out is very high value transactions, cars, apartments, etc. But once you overdo it, like 2018 in Venezuela, you're going to have the ref pricing starting and like removing prices and just quoting dollars. And then at some point, that means full dollarization of the economy. And that's in Argentina, you don't see that, right? Like you can force it, of course, as you say, and people will, like, people want to get paid, but it's not, merchants are not going to be pushing for dollar payments on small ticket items. It's amazing to see. I'm looking forward to going to Venezuela at some point. I've been nervous about the security question, which we can chat at the end of the podcast about that. Cool. So Guy, that's a great segue to El Dorado. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what El Dorado is and how you came about going from mining Bitcoin and selling it and arbitraging and so on into starting El Dorado and where you guys are today.
Absolutely. So yeah, my love with peer-to-peer markets started back in 2015, as I said, and basically with the rise of stable coins, I pretty much saw this as a real opportunity for a massive crypto adoption in a country like Venezuela that desperately needed a product like this. And I knew that I was seeing some studies about the correlation between, this is from Matt Alborg, he now works at Bitrefill, but back then he released a pretty nice research piece on the correlation of Venezuela's volumes and the Latin American peer-to-peer volumes, because the other thing that was happening in parallel was that Venezuelans were leaving the country. Like when you cannot, well, if you are not your own CFO and you don't have the financial tools to protect yourself and your loved ones, your only choice is to leave your country and go to somewhere else to start from scratch. And that happened with Venezuelans leaving to Colombia, Peru, Brazil, the US, Argentina, Chile, and we're now spread all across the world. But we were seeing very clearly the correlations in terms of volumes in between Venezuela and all of the countries that I just mentioned. And that led me to think that this was an idea that could be much more bigger than just like a localized, a local Bitcoin. And then I also, in the process, I became the co-founder, among other friends, of the Ethereum Venezuela community. We were doing meetups about Ethereum and the whole DeFi system, and I became just obsessed with stablecoins back in 2019. So by 2020, I got together with Juan and Carlos, my co-founders, and we decided to start building a peer-to-peer marketplace for buying and selling USDT with Venezuelan bolivars, Colombian pesos, Argentine pesos, and with many other local currencies in Latin America. And I always loved the fact that peer-to-peer markets resemble some of the original ideas of Bitcoin, of kind of decentralization and like free markets. Like when you go buy Bitcoins or USDT on whatever venue in the US, centralized venue, you're actually buying those USDT from the venue. When you go buy USDT on El Dorado, you're purchasing USDT from a third party. And for some people, that is probably not the best experience, but for many people, is the best way where you can find the best exchange rates, because there's more competition, there's more people selling USDT, and you just simply get faster time releases. It operates on a 24/7 instant basis, and most importantly, it's censorship resistant. Like for all the other like centralized exchanges in countries like Venezuela and a few others in Latin America, they were always relying on a banking partnership. And I studied banking, so I didn't really want to be a partner or be like dependent on a bank account to be able to operate. So we thought that peer-to-peer was definitely the way for us to scale this product. And yeah, since then, since then we basically started working on the product in 2020. We launched it in 2021. Started getting some traction back in 2022. In 2023, we raised our first funds. And
let me cut you off before we go into El Dorado's traction, because I think many people in crypto have never done a peer-to-peer exchange. So it's like you were mentioning that the legacy peer-to-peer exchange was people in Venezuela have one contact, they WhatsApp them. WhatsApp is like a messaging platform. You tell them, I want to sell X number of bolivares, let's say $100 worth of bolivares. You would arrange on a place to meet, and then you would do the exchange of physical bolivares for physical cash. So that I think people can relate to. Can you describe what a P2P like exchange looks like with El Dorado to someone that has never done a peer-to-peer exchange?
Absolutely. And first of all, back in 2018 or 19, like uh, Venezuelan bolivars in cash like simply disappeared. Like everyone started using Pago Móvil or digital payment methods. So with everything being digital, it's much more easier to exchange value. You don't have to go to a place to get the value that you want. So basically, buying USDT on Eldorado is fairly simple. You just have to register and to go into the application, and there's an order book where you will see many merchants that are selling USDT competing to see who offers the best exchange rate. So you simply have to input how much you want to exchange, and Eldorado will basically provide you with a few recommendations of traders with good reputations, and most of them complete transactions in an average time of 3 to 4 minutes. So it's fairly fast, and yeah, you just have to then copy the data of the counterparty and go into your banking application, do the transaction to the third party, and basically confirm on Eldorado that you have provided the payment, and then we release the USDT that is by then hold in an escrow contract to your Eldorado USDT account. So all that process happens in about 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay, so let me translate that into crypto jargon. So essentially, there are market makers, which are these people competing to field trades. They deposit USDT with you guys as an escrow, right?
Correct.
So that USDT is held in escrow by Eldorado. When I want to buy $100 worth of the Eldorado in Bolivar of USDT in Eldorado in Bolívares, you give me the banking information of that market maker that I chose. I send them let's say for simplicity purpose, I don't know, 1 million bolivares to that bank account. Whenever they receive it, they know it is me, and then they can say, okay, I am ready to release the funds, and then you release the funds automatically. And because you have the credible kind of like escrow process by which you can handle like the non-happy path, where I say, hey, I sent it, and they say I didn't receive it, and so on. There it's an optimistic kind of model, because they will usually behave with reality. So essentially, there's market makers, there's an escrow service provided by Eldorado, and then the part that happens outside the system is the banking payment. So the bank sees A paid B, and they don't know why they're paying for something.
Correct.
That's how
Correct.
Yeah, they're paying for something. So you still need to have a bank account, but you don't have to tell them, hey, I'm buying crypto, I'm sending this money to Coinbase, I'm sending this money to Kraken. So you do that payment. Once that payment gets released, the escrow on your guys' side, the market maker says release, and then you pay it out. What percentage was that? A good representation of the model?
Excellent. Yeah.
Awesome. How prone to failure is it? Like, how many unhappy transactions do you have for every, let's say, 100 happy transactions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, we have an average dispute rate of about 1%. So that's one out of 100 transactions. So the other 99 are completed within 3 to 5 minutes, but there's usually 1% that it's not necessarily bad intentions. It's just people simply not sending the correct amount, or not answering in time, or basically you sent the incorrect information to the counterparty, so they have to recheck what's the real information. So yeah, that goes into a dispute process, and we have a customer support team that helps solve those transactions.
Awesome. All right, with that out of the way, Emma, let's continue with Eldorado traction. I think now people can visualize what the transaction looks like, which I think is awesome, because you kind of completely remove the operation choke point controls and you make it a lot harder, right? Like, how do you know Martin is paying Emma for crypto and not for a dinner we had yesterday, right? Like there's no way to know.
Yeah, and maybe if I can jump in with a quick question, Guille, in terms of what was missing from the market, you had, of course, Binance Pay, their peer-to-peer marketplace. You had other providers that were offering similar services. What was missing from the user experience that prompt you and the team to bring El Dorado to market? How are you making that experience better for folks in Venezuela and all over the world?
Excellent question. I think that Binance became like the reference for many people after local bitcoins. It was almost like all the volumes that were concentrated on local bitcoins moved to Binance and a few other venues when people started understanding the use case for stablecoins. But that was still kind of a niche. That was still like the early adopters, because if you log into Binance, you have like your spot wallet, your derivatives wallet, you have NFTs popping up all the time, you have social crypto games. I mean, it's a massive kind of casino full of choices. So we knew that there was missing a platform that focused on the peer-to-peer experience, because I emphasize this with everyone I spoke with in the early days. Everyone told me the same. Oh, why don't you use a Binance in the backend or local Bitcoins in the backend to build then a front end? And I was like, okay, that would make us fully dependent on Binance liquidity, and we would need a bank account of our own in order to do that, in order to provide those payments. So I was always reluctant to that idea, but the other seemed the best company in the biggest company in the world seemed impossible for everyone back then. I insisted that there were more things that we could do with the peer-to-peer, and I still believe that there are many things that we can do with the peer-to-peer, essentially because we have a marketplace where we already have a reputation system built in, an escrow system built in, and USDT and USDC wallets built in. So the idea was basically, let's build something way simpler for the regular Latin American user, and let's see how that evolves. And we started in 2021. It took us like a year to get some initial traction, some trades on the platform. But yeah, by the end of 2022, we were already doing a dozen of transactions per day. That accumulated over time to hundreds of transactions per day, and today we are close to 3 million peer-to-peer transactions that we have transacted over the past 3 years.
So what is how many people compose these 3 million transactions? Do you see people doing like one transaction a year, one transaction a month? What's the user behavior behind this kind of peer-to-peer on-ramp, if you will, into USDT?
Of course, and this is where it gets more interesting, because we see other platforms or other venues, and even in Nick Carter's report, like the kind of the main use case that people were answering about why they use stablecoins was to get access to crypto. And this is not at all the case at El Dorado. We only offer USDT and USDC. So for us, and we have done multiple surveys on this, but for us, the number one use case is actually moving money between different apps. And that sounds simple, but it's not really simple when you have an ecosystem with over 200 different financial apps, and where people in countries like Venezuela are using not only the local financial apps, but we're also using PayPal, Wise, things like Pioneer a lot. We're getting paid on Deal, and many other apps that we're supporting on El Dorado. So what people essentially do is they basically receive some freelancer payment on PayPal. They cannot spend their PayPal balance in the supermarket in Venezuela, so they would swap that balance to USDT, and then they would hold USDT, and whenever they need to go shop for groceries, they would sell a small portion of USDT and in exchange of bolivares, and then go spend those bolivares at the supermarket.
Very interesting. And Guille, how do you go starting a business like this to evangelize basically the community and teach them about, El Dorado versus, again, Binance Pay? Of course, the community was familiar with as an access point, but how do you educate them to use El Dorado? Is it a boots on the ground type of work where you go talk to the various shops, where you go talk to your friends? How did that process happen? And, how did it eventually lead you to running millions of dollars worth of peer-to-peer transactions?
Yeah, great question. I think that in the early days, we relied a lot on our own community. We have over 500 members at the Ethereum Venezuela group chat. I was also pretty active in the arbitrage ecosystem in Caracas. So many people from the early days were also doing some arbitrage, initially with Bitcoin on local Bitcoins and later on with USDT. And for us, it also became very clear that USDT was a winning brand in at least in Venezuela, for the sense that it was the one with the network effects. So we emphasize a lot the fact that you can have a USDT wallet in basically a couple minutes, and you can start transacting with USDT, and that also became a good selling point for many people in the early days. But it's really on the ground work. I very recently I was giving a talk here in Caracas, which I don't do very often, but I was sharing. I had this same question, like how do you compete with Binance? And I was like answering with a joke, but it's not really a joke. And I was stating that like I don't really see the Binance CEO or the Binance country manager of Venezuela doing a TikTok and explaining the difference between the central bank's exchange rate and the free market exchange rate. And then it's not really about me, but we have a big team that is doing a lot of work and a lot of content on explaining like day-to-day situations for Venezuelans where they can take advantage out of using El Dorado. And actually today, if you decide to sell USDT against bolivars and pay with bolivars against paying with an international debit or credit card, you would be saving about 20%, just wow. Because there's a big gap that this is quite recent as of the last 3 months or so. So there is now incentive for many people to actually decide or choose to pay with bolivars and sell USDT at the free market exchange rate on El Dorado.
In the end, crypto is it's another tool for freedom, and it allows people to circumvent weird and kind of like non-economical government imposed restrictions. And I think coming from Argentina, like everything you say resonates, but I think many people will be confused. So just to clarify, what does it mean 20% difference? Can you explain where the 20% comes from, right? If you don't know where the yield comes from, you're the yield. So like, what does 20% mean, right?
Yeah, basically, like any country that ever wants to impose currency controls that they never work, that's what happens. I mean, the government recently arbitrarily decided that the price of the US dollar that merchants need to accept is the it's about 38 bolivars per US dollar. So if you're going to pay with like an international or debit card, or even if you need to like pay for certain things, uh, like you're receiving 20% less of what you need to pay to your providers in some cases. So imagine you're selling a beer and you're receiving a beer at like X price, but then you need to pay to the driver, and to the and the driver and the driver needs to buy groceries to survive, and those groceries are probably going to be purchased at a free market exchange. So that's really what happens all the time when you have a currency control, that it creates a distortion of the reality of the country, and that is massively detrimental to the economy, and to especially to small and medium merchants who are being highly affected. So the only answer to this is to always focus on the free market currency exchange, because it's the only one that it's real. Like, I don't care if like the government says it's 38. Like, if I cannot go to the bank and buy at 38, then it's not at 38. And I think that that's like the simplest explanation of all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And in the end, you have the official rate, which is 38, and then you have the real rate, which is probably like 45, 50, something like that. And yeah, so then, and essentially, like what happens is the government, and I'm gonna like say what happened in Argentina. Probably you're gonna correct me if there's anything different, but the recipe is kind of similar. They say, okay, if you export and the dollars come in, we're, instead of giving you for each dollar, let's say you're a developer and you get paid, I don't know, $2,000 a month working in Venezuela. If you brought them officially, those $2,000, they would give you 2,000 times 38 bolivares, as opposed to you getting those USDT, selling it on the free market and getting 45. So that means as an exporter, you get penalized, except if you can go to the free market. But larger exporters, like in Argentina, the people exporting soybeans, right? Like you cannot export them at a different rate, or like big companies, you're penalizing exports, which is what you wouldn't like to do. And the other weird thing is you're subsidizing imports, right? And I would imagine like they import people in Venezuela are very happy if you can get the access to that 38, because you buy at 38, you resell in the market, and then you at 45. So like you could be buying iPhones at a discount, then exporting the iPhones to Colombia, and then buying more iPhones with that, and like essentially arbitraging, being toxic flow towards the government price, essentially. Which is crazy.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I mean, it's a natural thing to happen when you impose currency controls like that.
So El Dorado is is where the free market is hosted. Sorry, Emma, what do you think is the share of free market transactions that El Dorado holds? And like, how do you think those transactions, like if you take the whole pie, what of that is like TradFi, meaning Zelle or like cash or etc.? How much of that is stable coins? And like, where do you think El Dorado falls in that split? And I know that this is going to be like a ballpark, but just to get a sense.
Yeah, I mean, rough estimates like 10 to 20% Venezuelans. I would suggest that 15 to 20% Venezuelans, maybe even a little bit higher than 20%, hold or use USDT. And in contrast with a country like Argentina, like there are not so many players willing to operate in Venezuela. So you have Binance with a massive market share, but at El Dorado, we've been earning like a very interesting market share over the past year and a half or so. So if you look at the rankings at the Google Play Store and the App Store, El Dorado is positioned within the top 10 financial apps in the country. And this is a massive accomplishment because not only we are positioned better today, we're positioned better than companies like Binance and PayPal, but we're also positioned better than maybe 30 or 40 Venezuelan banking applications. So that speaks really, really well about what we're doing. And really, we have about 22,000 reviews on our Google Play Store. And this is also pretty interesting because you usually don't see such a high ratio of reviews. And this is because the product is very useful for people. It's not like it's another app that they have in their phone. It's an app that is really solving real world issues. And back to a previous question that I didn't answer, the average active user on El Dorado is doing about 6 transactions per month, and this is way higher than all of the other numbers that I've seen from many other companies. And I think that this is interesting because it's we have the use case of moving money between apps. We have the use case of remittances, like Venezuelans in Brazil, Colombia, Peru, sending money back home. Huge activity in border cities like Cucuta with Colombia or Manaus with Brazil. And we also have the classic hedge against inflation use case that is also prevalent. And now we're also seeing El Dorado Pay used as a pretty much organically as well, but used as a payment method by many merchants in Venezuela. So yeah, I think that
let me ask you more about that. So El Dorado, I've seen in your Twitter, which by the way we're going to link in the show notes because people should follow you, especially people who are looking to how stablecoins are really used in the real world. But you usually post pictures of like checkouts in Venezuela, right? Like physical stores, but also digital checkouts with, I'm probably going to be wrong, but like 20 logos, right? Of like all the ways that you can pay. Can you describe a little bit of those? And I'm going to try to like quickly find one of those tweets so we can share here in the screen because I think it's going to be funny.
Yeah, I think that traces back from the stories I was mentioning about 2017 and 2018 with like 1,000,000% inflation rate. Like I accept whatever you pay. Like if you want to pay with food, like many people were accepting like food, and we went back to like barter back then, you know, and that was the reason why so a few merchants were accepting Dash and Bitcoin Cash. There was really no other reason beyond that. People were so open and flexible to accepting whatever more stable payment solution than receiving bolivars. So that created an environment of experimentation where we have seen a lot of from Panama and from Puerto Rico, from the US as well, like Zelle, Venmo, PayPal, being one as payment methods in Venezuela. And for the crypto part, El Dorado and Binance are the ones that you will see most commonly.
Awesome. So here in the screen, for those who are following, we have Guille's Twitter. So Guille P2P, Guille.eth, and he has pinned this tweet thread. And the first picture is what looks like a bookstore or something like that, taking means of payment, El Dorado on the left, that is very, very nice. Binance, Zelle, PayPal, Pagomóvil, which is the one you said is the kind of like the PIX, the UPI of Venezuela, credit card, cash, etc., etc. So real crypto usage at a normie store. This is not a forex exchange. This is not this is like a bookstore taking crypto payments. So world
that we didn't force to accept El Dorado. We didn't have to convince them. It was pretty much organic. And actually, when you pay on El Dorado Pay, is also for free. So we don't earn any money by convincing them.
Sorry, so this store, you didn't pitch them to put this on? How, like someone sent you this picture, you were like walking around the street, you saw this, someone sent you this picture. Amazing. Wow. Product market fit. There you go. Congrats. I imagine like it is awesome. So there's another surprise I wanted to do, which is maybe, Emma, you can go for the next question while I prepare. Maybe we can do a peer-to-peer transaction live. I bought some
That would be
Argentinian
fantastic.
pesos.
Sure.
I bought some Argentinian pesos while we were on the call, so I transferred crypto in. I bought pesos, and now I have pesos in my Mercado Libre account, and we can do a transaction. Emma, I'll let you go with the next question while I set everything up.
That's awesome. So we talked about many of the use cases. What's next, Guillermo, in terms of building up the El Dorado ecosystem, providing new services to your customers? Are you looking to expand into additional financial services? We talked at the beginning of the call about the lack of credit, the non-existence of credit card in Venezuela at this point in time. What are you guys looking at next in order to make sure that this stablecoin adoption keeps expanding and you can keep serving efficiently all of your customers in Venezuela, in LATAM, all over the world?
Well, you guys tell me. I mean, no, I'm kidding. I think that we have this big vision of becoming the stablecoin super app for Latin America, and we believe that the peer to peer is only like the first step. Is the way we on ramp people into the stablecoin economy, and basically after that, we need to basically rebuild the financial ecosystem, but on stablecoin rails. So as next, we're going to release very soon USDM accounts. I believe that's going to be very, very exciting for many users. It's going to be the first time ever for users in a country like Venezuela and many others in Latin America, where they will be able to purchase USDM backed by T-bills, basically with as low as $20. And I think that's really going to be transformational, because not only the credit disappeared, but also savings by consequence also disappeared in Venezuela. So if you ask how many people have a savings account in Venezuela, the number must be nearly zero. So we're very, very excited about this launch that we're doing together coming soon. And yeah, we're still working on a few other pretty cool stablecoin products down the road.
Are you thinking about debit cards, credit cards as well, Guillermo?
It's a good question. I think that it's a tricky business model. I've seen many companies to, trying to do like the classic crypto debit card. I think that is a tricky business. I'm not exactly sure if we're going to enter that business in the coming years. But yeah, it's something I'm obviously looking closely. It's like another probably interesting topic is local stablecoins. It's a topic that I'm kind of passionate about. I'm looking at them very closely, but I'm still waiting to see some signs from the people. Like if people don't ask us about like when are we going to add like Argentine peso stablecoin, then it's likely that we won't do it in the short term. We try to hear our users as much as we can.
What do you think is the place for kind of like non-dollar stablecoins or local stablecoins? What excites you about that? Because it's a topic we discuss a lot, and I think it's still like, as you say, up in the air. Users are not like jumping through walls to get them. What do you think? What excites you about them, and what do you think are the challenges?
Yeah, this is going to be like my answer. I think has like two sides. But for instance, what I like about the local stablecoin companies that I've spoken with is that they have built a pretty good way to do one-to-one cash-ins and cash-outs. So they take a lot of time and a lot of relationships to do so. But once they do it, they have the ability to basically offer on and off ramps, not only for small companies, but also for bigger businesses, which is something that we're also interested in considering down the road, maybe partnering with some of these local stable coins but mostly for the rails. I'm not really interested in having a Uniswap pool between, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm excited about it, and I think that it will get time for us to get there to fully forex on chain. Of course, that's kind of the dream, but for now, I think that the business for many of these local companies is basically to emulate the Tether or Circle's business, and to be able to embed that on and off ramp into marketplaces or things like that. So it's not really about the stable coin itself, but it's more about the rail and the cash in and cash out ability.
Yeah. And I think that the depth of the order book or the is critical for businesses, and I think it's something. At least I was taking a look at like the Argentinian peso, and like it's good for retail, but like if I'm trying to do $1 million, I will break everything, right? If I do it. All right, let's go to the demo. So essentially, I have an account that I just created, and give me a second. Screen. Here we are with a live demo of how El Dorado works. So we're gonna attempt to on ramp about 9 USDT, which is about 11 or 10,000 Argentinian pesos using Mercado Pago, which I while we were talking putting the app. So I'm gonna go to exchange. The default is Argentinian peso Mercado Pago, which I love. Thank you. And I'm gonna go to see peer-to-peer list, I would imagine, to see the order book. Awesome. So here we are. We have the order book. I don't know if there's anything about the order book you wanted to mention.
I mean, we make the default 50 USDT, but feel free to change it to whatever amount, and you will see the users that are online and available. And interestingly, when you scroll down, you will see that many of them are actually online. That means that there's an user in the other side of the continent with their El Dorado app opened right now, and this is truly magical.
It's crazy. And you also have history of these users. So for instance, this user here, Nerder76, has, I imagine, in escrow 300 USDT, almost 299.40 that you guys hold on their behalf. They've been closing transactions in about a minute, which is insane. 54 seconds, 33 seconds. And this person completed almost 9,000 transactions, 3,000 transactions, 600, 1,000. These are total market makers, which is crazy. Okay, let's go. Buy USDT, skip guide. So I'm doing 10,000 Argentinian peso. I'm gonna receive 828 USDT. Select payment method. I'm gonna go Mercado Pago. My full name. Tuki. I'm gonna go with my email. My DNI. This we're gonna. This is public information. My CBU and my alias. Give me a second. I need to copy this CBU and alias. The CBU is the account number. So that's the Argentinian equivalent of the account number. So I just copied it on my app and pasting here. And then my alias. The alias is kind of like for is the Argentinian equivalent of the ENS. So that is the easy to understand version of the CBU. So I create the payment method. Awesome. So all of that, like my mom understands. So it's a very simple language. I would imagine it's very similar for other currencies. So here I go. It says I have to pay this amount. Yeah, accept an exchange. Let me not share my screen for a sec. So it says copy the data and make the transfer. So I'm going to copy that. Next, return to the app and press the payment made button. Okay, go to pay. So I'm going to pay this person. I'm going to copy this and send it to my phone. Usually, I imagine people are on their phones when they do this, so it is easier to do. I'm going to note this person, DNI starts with 9, so this is a foreigner. They're not Argentinian. I would guess they're Venezuelan. I don't know.
It's
you tell me.
90%, 95% guess is Venezuelan.
Yeah. So that's amazing. The Venezuelans are spreading, and they feel your business.
Yeah, we all love peer to peer. Wherever we go, Venezuelans are quite immersed into the sharing economy. Like you see that happening with Venezuelans doing Rappi in countries like Colombia or Argentina, and in some sense, doing peer to peer has some similarities to the sharing economy. You're basically offering your services, in this case, financial services, to other people.
Awesome. So I just completed the payment. You can see here in my phone, I just sent the payment. So essentially, I copied the CVU and I paid like you would pay on a traditional payment application. Payments in Argentina, similar to Venezuela, similar to Brazil, settle in less than 1 second. So I'm going to go and say payment done. Yes. Let me stop sharing again. Waiting for the merchant to release the payments. So we are on the waiting phase.
Now I suggest you send a text to the merchant.
I'm going to say, hola, ya mandé los 10,000 en Carrica. There we go. So send me the captura. I'm going to send this image. I am bringing it from my phone. So this would be the proof of payment. I'm going to send it. There you go. I'm just acting how I would really act. So
of course, we've heard so many stories.
Payment done. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Holy cow! That was very intuitive. Okay, amazing review. Gracias. All right. Exchange more. Now I want to. So now, just to recap, so now in my wallet, I have the 828 that I just purchased. So I had 10,000 in my Mercado Libre account. Now I have 828 USDT in a wallet. What is this? Is this a self-custodial wallet? Like, do you guys hold these assets? Like, what's the situation with these $8?
Yeah, so for now, we take custody of those assets, and we also do that to prevent any type of disagreements on the peer-to-peer transaction. But the plan is for us to introduce self-custodial savings wallets very soon. So we will be sharing more about that in just a few weeks.
Awesome. So then if I want to send this, I could send it to someone. So
you can send me like $1 if you want at Guille.
Yeah, what's your alias?
Of course.
Guille. Next. And I'm going to send you
whatever you want,
$1.
or even less.
description test. The transfer success. So I just sent you. The fee was free. That's awesome. Add as favorite user, Guille P2P. Okay. So that's the first thing. So now if I want to send it to an external wallet, I could say, okay, send everything. And there's going to be a $5 charge, I would imagine, for that transaction.
So try to take a look.
USDT. Let's see, next. In the Tron network, how can I send it in a different network?
We're only supporting Tron for now.
So that's why. So the total is 728, out of which 259, and then you have the your expenses to send it out. So we need to add some L2 here, and then where else can we send? Through a peer-to-peer marketplace. Okay, so I can provide liquidity to someone now, and become a market
That's
maker.
correct, with as low as $1, and that's a pretty important contrast with many of our competitors, where in order to become a market maker, you need at least 100 USDT only to be a merchant. So that's another interesting difference with Binance.
That's awesome. And then top up local currency from another crypto wallet. And here I can send, and I imagine, this is only Tron network for now as well. Awesome. So I have a wallet with you guys, a centralized, today a custodial wallet that you guys manage that I can fund with Tron. But you say most of the people, what they do is they exchange, they come here, and then they send to some other marketplace. So they come here and they say, okay, I want to take my USDT in, call it, I don't know, US dollars, and I want to actually pay with Zelle. And here I can pay, I don't know, someone for a barbecue, essentially in US dollars.
Correct. And to summarize a little bit, in less than 5 minutes, I guess you're in Barbados right now, Martin, right?
I'm in Miami.
So you're in Miami. You just sent money to Argentina, and then I received money from you in Venezuela in less than 5 minutes, and instantly.
And now I could send that money on Zelle to someone else, basically also instantly, to off-ramp this. That's insane, man. This is great. This is freedom, right? You don't require other intermediaries to agree to participate. This is literally peer-to-peer, like the movie. It's willing market participants buying at a fair market price, right? Which is always the good thing to do. So, Guy, congratulations for what you built here.
Thank you, Martin.
Awesome. So we talked about everything today. We talked about your early start in crypto, Guillermo, or OG Bitcoin miner turned crypto trader, arbitrager, and then stablecoin advocate. Super excited to learn more about the landscape in LATAM and in Venezuela, peer-to-peer stablecoin adoption, and hopefully more long-term stablecoin adoption across all different type of financial services. We are personally very excited to work with your team. We are massive proponents on real-world adoption of digital assets and blockchain, and what you guys are doing is exactly that. So we are excited to see the relationship grow with the Dorado team. But before we wrap up today, tell us, what are you excited about over the next few weeks and months? And, where can people follow you and Dorado for all the latest news and updates around all things stablecoins?
Amazing. Thank you guys for having me. You can follow me at Guille Peer-to-Peer, P2P on every social media network. And you can follow Dorado at Eldorado.io. And our website is eldorado.io. We are live in 7 countries, including Colombia, Brazil, Peru, Panama, Venezuela,
And
and
Argentina.
and Argentina, correct. And yeah, feel free to text me or share some insights on why you're excited about stable coins and things I'm excited about the future. I'm really excited about seeing wider adoption of stablecoin powered products, not necessarily the classic USDT USDC thing. I'm really looking forward to seeing more financial products rebuilt and rethink using stable coins as the backend. And I think that in a sense, USDM is also a part of that. It's like the dollar savings accounts that many Venezuelans and Argentinians need, and that's why we're building together. And I'm really excited for many other stablecoin powered products.
Awesome. Guy, thank you for coming.
Thanks a lot.
Great to chat.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Guy.
Awesome.